Welcome back to the Occult Rejects. Today we're joined, oh shit, I was reading the wrong one. Today we're joined by Aidan Wachter, author of 6 Ways, Approaches and Entries for Practical Magic, Weaving Fate and Changeling. Aidan's work sits in a very practical current of modern sorcery, animism, spirit work, sigils, offerings, trance, talismans, dream work, fate work, witchcraft, and what he calls dirt sorcery. What makes his approach stand out is that it is not built around rigid dogma or ceremonial performance. It is about relationship, attention, reciprocity, screw that word up, embodiment, responsibility, and learning how to live in a world that is not dead matter, but alive with powers, spirits, signals, and relationships. In six ways, Aiden gives a direct, guided approach to practical magic and spirit relationship. In Weaving Fate, he goes deeper into fate, memory, selfhood, the Black Book, the Corridor, and the Fever Stone as tools for reshaping the forces that influence our lives. Changeling, he continues into witchcraft, praxis, sovereignty, self-discipline, change, and what it means to weave magic into the whole fabric of life. So today we're going to talk about practical magic, animism, spirit relationships, offerings, trance, sigils, talismans, the dead, sacred fear, spiritual hygiene, dirt sorcery for sure, because I got to talk about that, and what it means to build a living sorceress practice without turning it into fantasy, theater, or empty occult aesthetics. And joining me today to talk to Aiden, we got Sorcery from the Order of Chaos. What is going on, my man? I'm very glad to have you back. It's been a minute. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be back. It's been a hectic couple of weeks over here. But that was quite. Your introductions are getting so good.
Thanks.
I was gonna say I think I'm more interesting in that description than I actually am in any other I've heard, and certainly more so than in reality.
I mean, it's like a biography on your next book or something.
Yeah, no, that was great. But you know, to be fair, I think it was totally accurate. Also, great. It was a great introduction because there's a lot of good stuff to say about your work. You know, it's I think that there's a couple of people who are moving in this direction of animism as the kind of bottom line. You know, it's like getting back to pagan roots, but with modern technology and modern insights. And I love that. And I think that you're doing that extraordinarily well. So all that to me sounded dead on accurate, but also just good job. It was very cool. Very well written. Anyways, yeah, I'm Sorcery. I'm the head teacher at the Order of Chaos Occult University. I also do YouTube, kind of. But I think of myself as a teacher, not a YouTuber. And real quick plug, everything on my website today is half off. That includes subscriptions. It includes joining the school. It includes getting if you want just a tarot reading or a coaching package. Even if you want to become a lifetime member, you save $500 on that one today. So the code to get that is 333. Put it in the coupon code. Unless you're getting a coaching package, then it's 444. Have fun with that. All right.
Sounds like too much for people to remember.
Right, I know. I'll post it later. It's fine.
I know I would be. I'd be stoned out.
Can we like mix these things up and get something special no one knows about?
Yeah.
Just like 433 do something really cool.
You know what I wanted to do, guys, for the longest time? So I have this like weird obsession with like cartoonish secret Illuminati stuff. Okay, like so if I won the lottery today and I would here's how I would spend the money. I would buy a house that had every bookshelf would have a book that you pull and then something flips around and there's a staircase and there's a so what I wanted to do for my website for a long ass time was have like some kind of esoteric puzzle that you had to solve to even see the website. And I did that for a while, but no one could fucking solve it. And I couldn't think of anything that was both easy enough and fun enough to make it worth doing. But if I can think of one, I would do that.
That's like some Cicada 3301 shit.
Totally, dude. That's just amazing. I love it.
Yeah,
absolutely. But all it does is keep people from seeing my website, so I stopped doing it.
Right. Nice. Let me know when you do figure that out, though. Aiden. So please let everybody know anything that I left out or anything you want to promote. Please let people know what your deal is and where they can find you.
Yeah, pretty much what was said. My focus mostly on this point is on animism and on kind of the course stuff that I do, which there probably won't be another one for about a year, but because we just started one. the courses are usually kind of framed as building a tool set rather than a data dump. And so they're very intensive, hands-on, do it during the course, get involved with the course people and all that stuff. And that's been working really well. We're just a week or so into the current one. Yeah, the way that I've described it recently is that I was initially drawn to magic due to spirit contact, but then kind of got sucked into the wider world of thelema and witchcraft and Kenneth Grant and chaos magic and all of that stuff. And I've kind of popped out the other side is how I think about it. I ended up close to where I started, but with way more actual understanding of what's happening and way clearer contact. It's not random anymore. And I'm mostly just talking to what I call the peeps, which are the kind of spirits that are around me. And we do all this stuff together. It's a group project. And yeah, so I'm working on another book right now that hopefully will come out next year. It's kind of headed off to the editor for the first pass, but they'll probably have it for a few months. We take this stuff really slowly to kind of generate what we want to do with each book. And yeah, other than that, I'm really active on Patreon. That's the main place that I exist. There's probably 150 Q&A videos up on Patreon now. On a lot of stuff. There's a 13-part sigil course on how I work with sigils. All that's just available for the baseline. The tiers are all the same. It's just according to what you can pay. And that's about it. Yeah, I just animist who happens to have gotten there through magic, and magic is what I know, so that's how I teach.
I love it. I like how you said that. I guess you mentioned you had spirit contact, which kind of brought you into it or something along those lines. I always ask every person that I have on what got you even into this stuff. So I don't know if maybe you want to kind of get into that a little bit more. What got you into the magic or the occult?
Yeah, so Sonri knows this because we've talked about some of it. But for folks that don't know me, I grew up in suburban California, super boring. Now, really obviously, neurodivergent kid. Back when that was not really a thing in the US to be that they were aware of, which I think is probably good because that was also, I kind of grew up in the time where most of my friends that were really noticed as being weird ended up institutionalized. So at least for a short period of time, or heavily drugged. And I skipped all that. And I just had weird shit visually when I was a kid, usually when I was sick. My first memories are hallucinations from when I had a really bad fever with pneumonia when I was 2. But the relevant piece is that when I was 11, I had a visitation by what I now know as the Man in Black.
On Sundays.
Yeah, or the Dark Man. Dara Mason Field has a really good book called Song of the Dark Man that talks about the Dark Man quite a bit for folks that are looking kind of for more general information on that. And that just tripped some switch. I didn't recognize it at the time. But everything got weird, and I definitely got weirder. And so that would have been in 78, maybe 79. And 79, I was shopping for science fiction books, and I saw this brand new book called The Spiral Dance by a woman named Starhawk in the probably, I don't even think it was Barnes and Noble. It was Dalton, B. Dalton books.
I remember
if
that.
it was old enough.
Yeah.
And got that. And I could recognize that there was something in there, but I couldn't figure out how to apply it. I did do a little bit of magic up through the time till I was 15. And when I was 15, maybe right at 16, just because of when my birthday lands, I ran into some other punks and visited them at their house, and they played Force the Hand of Chance by Psychic TV for me. And I was like, what in the fuck is that? And that sent me out to go buy a copy for myself on vinyl, imported from Japan, very expensive for my little 15-year-old ass.
Yeah, right.
And in it, they had a thing that you could write to them and send them international reply coupons to get more information. And so my best friend and I pooled for that, and we got, a couple of little psychic cross pins and the Gray Book and a few other little flyers from them. And I started practicing magic out of the Gray Book first. It was the kind of first somebody telling me what to do and me actually doing it. Pretty much just because it was about masturbation and I was already really good at that. So
that is funny. That is a cool experience, though, that you had to do the whole like mail correspondence.
Yeah, it was super cool. Everything was still mail then. I ordered a lot of shit online. I ordered a lot of velo-bound, multi-generational Xeroxes of magic books online because that was the only way you could get them. So like through the temple, I had a copy of Kenneth Grant's Images and Oracles of Austin Osman Spare, which was a huge influence on me. But you could hardly see the pictures. It had been Xeroxed so many times. But you could buy these things, because the shit just wasn't available.
Do you miss the element of mystery and this is like a cool thing that I had to work really hard to get aspect of that, rather than everything just being at your fingertips and online now?
I think that there's massive power in that, and I think it's something that people have lost. And more than that, or it's related to that, but it's almost more than that. It's really hard to get, and there's nothing coming after it, as far as you know.
Yeah.
And so you find some book, whether that's Earth Power by or Scott Cunningham. That's another book that I found that I actually did some work out of, because it's like, oh, I understand this. The theory, there's no theory that is relevant there. It's just do it. And so I just did it. And so because of that, I got to find out what that type of work did for me, rather than let's go and fucking learn everything fucking possible about elemental magic before I even do something. And I think that really fucks people up personally.
I definitely agree. Yeah. I think that the mechanical doing of magic is 80% of what your magical practice should be. And the part that I did where I banged my head against the wall for 3 years trying to figure it all out is not like, I wouldn't recommend that to anyone else.
I wouldn't be able to quote it, but I'm currently reading a book called God is Red, from I think 94 or 95 by Vine Deloria. It's he subtitles it A Native View of Religion. And there's a really cool thing that I just found this morning that really spoke to, I think, a lot of that idea, which he said that like Western religion, and I would throw Western occultism into the same boat, is really like locked into to temporal things like time, like the history of, where, as he was saying, kind of native and indigenous stuff was locked into place. And so it's the actual lived experience of where you are for fucking generations until it's fucking in your everything, right? Because it's like, and I think that's more what I've been leaning more and more into, even as though I'm a constant traveler, so I don't have a land base, which also is a kind of weird one for an animist. Yeah, I kind of think that you need to know enough to get started, but the answers to all the shit that everybody wants to know come from the practice. There's just no other way.
So, okay, yeah, I agree. The one thing I would be wary of, and I guess the driving force for me into really looking at the underlying theory, which is just kind of the way my mind works. But like I said, I don't recommend everyone else do this.
I'm not suggesting this is universal at all.
Yeah. So the one thing that I am wary of, because it happened to me many, many, many years ago, and I've seen it happen to other people since, is they have an experience of spirit contact and then think that that contact and that experience applies ubiquitously to everyone everywhere. right? And that's how religions get started. Someone talks to God, and then they're like, "Well, God told me," and
Right.
yeah, right. So, like, I think it's important to get your knowledge from direct experience, but then also not to like balance that out with, okay, now how do I sort out? I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. Like, how does this apply in a way that does not inflate my own ego or cause me to think that I know the one secret truth?
Absolutely, and I think that's kind of the key to the whole thing. Is this is the other terrible thing about the internet is you have literally millions of people providing their interpretations of someone else's experience.
Yeah.
And way too many people actually engage in this practice on all sides. And it's really bad for you because of that kind of thing. It's like if we talk about that kind of time versus space thing, right?
Mhm.
In the time, what we're saying is like whether it's the Bible or whether it's, some particular grimoire or way of practicing magic from the 1300s, that's the time-based idea that we're talking about, right?
Mhm.
Versus the spatial idea is like, okay, I have this altar in my room, in my house, and I do things there.
Yeah.
And what happens because all of us are in the same space. It is literally specific to that. And to try and extrapolate that out to the wider world is kind of sketch.
Totally.
And so my approach to kind of guiding folks is to go, hey, these are approaches that have worked for me and that I've seen work for lots of people. And here's the best way that I know into them to see what they do for you. But you shouldn't assume they're going to do what I say at the end. Because sometimes some people get just like reverse effects from shit that I get. There's shit that super chills my shit out and is lovely. And they're like, oh, fuck, totally blew me up. It's like, cool, stop.
Yeah.
Not keep going and try and make it mesh with my experience. Like, fucking stop and ease up and let's look at that maybe. Or maybe we find something else for you to do. Because what we're after is the effect that I got, but what got me that effect is not the same, right?
That could be due to mental state, expectation, a few things, you know what I'm saying?
Neurology.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Neurology is the biggest one. It's also, mental state. How the social conditioning that we have, and all of us have it, it's inescapable, how that has affected you, right? So like, one of the things that I talk about a lot, and it's not like it's really a big deal, but it's just to kind of throw an alternate idea out there, is there's like a whole section of the internet that is massively obsessed with all of the ways that folklore and folktales have produced these dire warnings about magic.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, to me, I look at those things and I go, is that legit warnings or is that actually anti-magic propaganda that has just survived? Knowing what we know about the last couple thousand years, mostly it's anti-magic propaganda. People are way too paranoid about things that they don't need to be paranoid, and not paranoid at all about shit they should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the first thing I think of when you say that was, well, our subconscious, our collective imagination has also produced so many very stern warnings about AI, and we're just like, hey, let's do this.
Or like you look at where we are now, you look at in AI, part of why the AI equation is so interesting right now is this is like whatever 60 years on from people really beginning to say, hey, the science is in and we're fucking this up.
Yeah.
And then there was massive propaganda that still runs rampant to this day from people that are like, yeah, but that will affect my bottom line, so we need to like get you to not believe this shit, right?
Yeah.
The church did this everywhere around magic, and it's just kind of you got to look at that and go, okay, is this a real thing? And to me, when you're talking about kind of internet magic, you don't know what these people have actually done unless they're kind of overtly out there for a long time.
That's a good
right.
point.
And there's not a lot of people that are that way.
True.
And so there's lots of people that talk so much shit about stuff that I'm just like, what are you even talking about? Like there's like, I can find, if I do the search, I can find all the TikToks and all of the blog posts and all of the fucking live journals, if I can go back far enough, where these ideas kind of gained ground. But I don't know anybody that actually practices seriously that has ever had these experiences. And it happens all the time. It's like, seriously, dude, come on.
That's even like, I hate to say, like, even because of me being when I originally started podcasting, I was much more in the conspiracy community. The idea of what they think that we must do in our house is like absurd.
Oh,
it's totally absurd.
It's
like,
hilarious. Yeah. My favorite genre of YouTube, not my favorite one I'm always looking for is the ex Satanist, ex witch turned Christian exposes everything, right? And they're just talking. Clearly, they've never engaged in anything real much.
I did 1,000 abortions.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a great story for that you guys would appreciate. So, back in the early 90s, this was like for me when I was kind of co-running the Temple of Psychic Youth, Topi NorCal kind of office or access point, they called them, with my friend Mark and some other folks. There was this evangelical dude that was that his whole shtick was he was God's GI. And so he would go into different places to do battle with the forces of darkness, right? And so he was coming to San Francisco to have like this big rally in one of the kind of downtown venues that you could put a couple thousand people in. I don't remember which one. And he was gonna exorcise San Francisco of the demons of homosexuality and basically kind of demonology, paganism, and all that shit.
Did this make the news?
Yeah, I was all over the news. And
I was gonna say, I think I remember this now because I remember hearing some silly shit like that. Like, nice try.
And so he is coming, and there is this big fucking shitstorm, and you have the queer community up in arms about this, and they're going to go protest this thing, and you have the pagan community up in arms and protest this thing, and I, who especially at like 23 am like pretty much a shit disturber, am like, why are you all throwing the fucking LaVey and all the Satanists under the bus? Which is kind of what everybody kept doing. Not everybody, but a number of these things you would get public statements of like, look, but we aren't the Satanists. That's that black house up on California, but we aren't them. We aren't the Temple of Saturn, any of that. And they were all silent about the whole thing. The Satanists were all silent about it. And
they're throwing them under the bus. That is funny.
And so,
come on out, guys, they caught us.
So one day they're in the local paper leading up to this, maybe like a week or 2 weeks before, there is this witch who has a magic shop, has an occult shop in the city, saying like, I'm gonna go do spiritual battle with this God's GI guy, right? Awesome. And I'm like, I've never heard of that guy, and I've never heard of that shop. I think this is bullshit. So one of my friends from the temple, her and I went over and walk in, and it's like an almost empty space. Like there's nothing, like it was rented for this purpose, right? With a few props. It's super basic. And so we come in and start asking this guy questions, and he gets really uncomfortable. And so we just kind of laugh at him and leave. And we walk out and we're like, that guy's gonna fucking convert at this event. Like this is a shtick. This is a straight up con job done on a really large scale. So we decide that we're gonna go be the shit disturbers for everybody. And so we generate a fake satanic organization, the World Satanic Liberation, with like ridiculous propaganda. It's like really brief. It's like this blood red sheet of paper with like black print on it, and great graphics. And it's done as this like kind of SLA militant fucking California bloodthirsty Satanist thing with that quote from de Grimston from The Process at the end, drain the dregs and leave not a drop in the glass at the bottom of the thing. And so we go to this thing, a bunch of us, everybody's like dressed to the nines and in their best black and looking sexy. And about 15 of us go to this thing and start handing these things out to everybody and fucking being like, we are gonna be the sexiest people here and we're gonna stand up for the Satanists, all as a joke. It's entirely a joke. None of us give a fuck. And so everybody does this, and then it actually is time to go in. And I think only me and my girlfriend, maybe one other person, were like, everybody else like, I can't go listen to this guy. And I'm like, no, I want to go see if this guy converts, because I'm sure of it. And he did. And he is still, at least I forgot all their names, but like 10 years ago I checked, and he was still on the circuit of the evangelicals coming to speak about how he was saved by this guy from his horrible occult past, which never existed.
My gosh.
And now bring that into YouTube in the internet age, and like, how seriously should you take this shit? You shouldn't at all.
Yeah. Right. There was an episode of it was Tucker Carlson talking to like a demonology guy. This happened a few months ago. And I remember hearing about this was going to happen. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get popcorn. This is going to be the most pretend conversation that ever happened. Right. It's like two massive liars lying to each other and agreeing with each other's lies with millions of people watching going, oh my God, I'm sure all the evangelicals who are watching this think it's absolutely the gospel truth. And it's just two idiots pretending, making shit up, oh my God, it was unreal.
And so super funny because it's like, and I know somebody just converted publicly. There's a big shitstorm because some internet astrologer or tarot reader just recently converted. And it's funny because it's like I started telling people, like, when Trump was reelected and when they brought in the vote, in particular Rasvat, into the organization, that was clear they were going to go super Christian nationalist. I'm like, watch all the people switch teams, and some of those may be legit because it does happen, but look at that and see if you smell the grift behind it, because there's going to be a lot of that, because it's like you were the people that were they viewed as the most viable that they could take for some money, because fucking woo people pretty open to bullshit. And then they went, but now I have the credibility of the former woo person to go and fucking grift real hard on the evangelicals. I'm in on that because that's good money. And I'm not saying that's the case with this woman. I don't know anything about her.
I've heard a few people give that theory, though. They're even saying,
but it's happened. It's happening.
She was too in depth in it anyway.
Yeah,
it's very
definitely happening.
Yeah. That is interesting. I saw a lot of people complaining. I was like, yo, you should be happy. That's like McDonald's closing down, and Burger King would be happy. They can get their customers now. Oh, that lady, I'm sure, had a bunch of suckers paying her money. Now they're all available for you to go after. No. But I had heard the same thing that you had said. And I do think not anybody specific is coming to mind. A little bit more in the conspiracy community, but not so much in the magical community that I know of or talk to. But there is, I always say, you really don't know, myself including, you don't know what I do once I shut this camera off.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have zero clue who the hell I actually am. I'll be totally honest with you. I really don't know who the people are on my show. We get along, but Sorry could tell you I'm not asking this kid 20 questions about his personal life.
Yeah, and I have to do this in the Patreon group that I have on the Discord server. It's periodically remind people, it's kind of in the on-ramping now, like, hey, I can't vouch for any of these people. Like, my girlfriend's on there, I can vouch for her. There's another 5 people out of the 600 people on there that I can vouch for, but overall, I don't know. But I actually do know them. And it's also funny because it's when we get into kind of the, like, teaching the courses or what's in the books, periodically it becomes really clear that people are like, this is their vision, is I'm doing these things exactly that way, which is totally not real. It's like, no, these are the things that I know get you to where I think it would be helpful for you to get to. And and I'm probably doing something way different by now.
So so this is an idea that I was talking about today, and about evolving practices and the importance of evolving your practice. Because one of the things that seems very, very evident to me, and this you can even, the thing about talking about scientific studies with magic is like someone's going to say that's bunk, and that's fine, whatever. But it seems very evident to me that your level of excitement versus boredom is incredibly important to the potency of the magic that you're doing. And so if you do the same ritual over and over and over, if you're like me at all and you get bored easily, then a ritual that was once very, very effective can become completely non-effective because of your boredom about it. Not that the mechanism no longer works. It's just that like that excitement and curiosity and that sense of of mystery and wonder, all of that makes your magic work so much better. And so to constantly be changing up the way you do things can be really beneficial to getting results.
Yeah, and I think there's a distinction. So you're gonna get a lot of this probably here just because of what I'm doing with most of my time. But so the course that I'm teaching is called Building a Practice, and it's explicitly practices. There's no kind of ritual or spell work in the sense of I'm doing this to get this. It's not about that. Right. These are like underlying practices, right? And it's very funny because that's where that flips. Because I do agree with you. You got to be into what you're doing or it doesn't make sense, Yeah. It's not going to work. But what I do see, and another side effect of so much information, is people don't necessarily give themselves the time with those actual practices, not spells, to get through the phase of this is new, it's hard, I have to think about it a lot, to it becomes fluid, now it's really cool, maybe I get some cool effects off of it, to now it's boring, and then now I kind of hate it. And anybody that's kind of done these kind of practices, whether that's meditation or many different things that are outside of kind of the spiritual realm, it's after that you figure out what they really do. And that's a big piece that's also missing in the modern age. It's a really interesting thing. It's like, no, like maybe give that another few months of doing it every day and then see what you think, because you're probably dropping it too soon. But at the same side, there's that other piece, which is also if it's clearly doing something fucked up, drop it, get away from it, find something else. There's many choices. And really anybody that I think that's kind of in the position of talking about it should be able to help you find it. It shouldn't be, sometimes we're wired so differently. There's a lot of folks that come into my zone that it becomes clear that we're neurologically and kind of spiritually running on different tracks. And it gets to the place where I go, like, I can't really help you because what you are kind of wound into, I can't go there. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Aiden, if you had to say, like, as a weird thought experiment, like if you had to pick one thing that is like the absolute core of your entire magical thinking system, thesis, everything, like what's the centerpiece for you?
It's all relationship based.
Yeah.
Everything else is to facilitate that.
In relationship to, I mean, this is the cool thing about animism is like, well, relationship is all there is.
Relationship is all there is.
Yeah.
And so instead of, it goes back to what we were talking about before, like, and this is kind of why I lean so hard on the practice piece and everything that I do is that's the shit that will change you in ways that might open doors for you to kind of figure out who hangs around with you and who likes you and who you like. And, another thing that we see is this kind of, because there's so many options now, so easily available by asking your phone, hey, what spirit does this? It sends people further afield all the time instead of going like, hey, you have some people around you, because everybody does.
Yeah.
Can you build engagement with them and then ask them? And in my experience, when they can't help, they'll guide you to things that can, but they'll do that very surgically, precision-wise, compared to let's ask ChatGPT what the fuck is up and who I should pray to for this. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many people are so quick to run to, these very well-known spirits when it's entirely possible that the spirit of your, distant cousin Joe is hanging around and could help you significantly more than, the spirit with the name that's recognizable.
And it's also really interesting because you also, to me, one of the things that I find really fascinating is where people go for specific things, because I'm totally in agreement with you. Like your ancestors, and you can just ignore or do some other things to make them not be a problem with the ones that were really shitty, tend to be fantastic at base level material stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In many situations. Now you can hit problems because they don't necessarily drop all of their bullshit. Mm-hmm. And so the ancestors are not a super smooth ride for everybody, initially at least. But if your ancestors were good people and were sound and were able to have good, stable lives, they're probably good at helping you do that too. Whereas you bring this to some underworld deity because you think it's got tons of power. It's like, I don't know that Hecate gives a fuck about whether you have a nice house.
Right.
I'm not seeing that relation, even though I fucking love her. She's really into some shit that I'm into, and it's great, but that's not where I'm going.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so Hecate and Thoth in particular are two spirits that I think are there to be guides and teachers, and it seems that they're very enthusiastic about doing this. But I would not ever think to ask either of them for gimme stuff. Help me acquire this. That just doesn't seem. I mean, I'm not saying they can't. I would never. It would never even occur to me to ask them for that. They're more, to me, these are guides. They're there to tell you how and when you fuck up, and how and when and where you can do better.
And I think some of this stuff for me is because I'm aphantasic, right? I have no inner screen.
Oh, wow, really?
I can't visualize at all.
Yeah, I know what that is.
I'm 80% of the way there. I can visualize but not well.
Yeah.
I can imagine how magic is, practicing certain things without that. It's got to be
it's actually really interesting because it's if you are fully aphantasic, at least in my case, you bang your head against the wall for many, many years until you figure out it's just not happening. No, after this many years of trying this many systems to change this, it's probably not changing. And it's only about 10 or 12 years ago that kind of aphantasia was named, I think. And it's more prevalent than people think. It's not super prevalent. Somewhere between 1 in 20 and 1 in 50 people are totally aphantasic. And so it's very much a spectrum. And I'm probably on that bottom 5% where it's really useless to even try. And so you just have to look at all that stuff and go, this entire system was developed by somebody who was hyperphantasic. And they're not going to be able to help me because they've never had to figure out all the stuff that I have to figure out to work. And so really it's funny when you look at my stuff, in the course, some of the materials that I've shared are just a description of the words you say and the physical acts and what you should be thinking about, but there's no suggestion of visualization because I've learned how to work without it. And it's very funny to me because people will periodically going, well, I'm doing this visualization of this. And it's oh, that's cool. Yeah, whatever. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's useful for them, but I can't touch it. And so, and I don't even remember where we got started with that one, but it's just interesting. It's the neurological piece is the largest piece of finding what works for you, I think, is you have to find guidance that actually is aligned with what you are literally capable of doing, not what you could in a perfect world learn how to do. And so that's a big thing. And as soon as I figured out that shit, I was like, 90% of magical materials are geared towards people who can visualize. What do you do if you can't? And had to work that out.
Well, so I mean, like I said, I'm not good at visualizing. I can do it a little bit, but for me, I always wonder what people who can visualize very well, what that experience is like. But I look at it as the visualization is actually, and this is just again like I don't know, but actually there to help you generate the feeling, and the feeling is actually what really matters. Right. At least that's how it works out for me, because I can't visualize very well. But if I can generate the emotional resonance with what it is I want to accomplish, then that becomes very, very powerful. And to me, the visualization is like just a bridgeway to getting to the feeling.
Right. And so for me, what it is I focus primarily on bodily sensation and on kind of imagined felt sense. So imagined bodily sensation.
Mm-hmm.
And also I figured out that it's really interesting that the ability to phrase a sentence about something is as imaginable as generating an image.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I teach that helps a fuck ton of people that are in my boat is to actually literally talk yourself through stuff and to train yourself to talk through all of your work, so that if you are, say, imagining that you're supposed to visualize yourself entering into a cave, you do it as if you're writing a story. Like, okay, I'm walking in, I'm seeing this is to the left, this is to the right. And it feels like you're making it all up, because all of it, we're making it all up in this sense. It's all translation. But what happens is that process for most people eventually kind of falls away, and they realize that they know they're in this space and they know where everything is, but they still can't see any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just an odd little translation thing. But it's totally workable. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. I wonder, this is something such a dumb thing, but I think about it all the time, is what would it be like to be blind and to want to visualize, right? It's all just description. And even your visual, like what you see and what I see aren't the same. I of course they're remarkably similar. I'm not saying they're totally different, right? It'd be fun if they were, but I think they're remarkably similar, but they're not the same. And really, your visual experience is a kind of language. It is an interpretation. It's a cartoon that your brain makes up to give you like this visual image of what is otherwise description, right? Terence McKenna put it really well. It says that reality doesn't exist except as an object of description.
Yeah, and so that's an interesting way to put it. And kind of where I think about it is that, and how I talk about it is, everything is translated. Everything that we experience is a translation.
Yeah.
And so I can use the visual translation if that's available to me.
Right.
But I can also use all these other kind of internal senses, and some of those are not definable. We have kind of these terms even for the various clairs, clairaudience, clairsentience, and all that stuff. And those are still super insufficient in a lot of ways. Yeah. It's like, I get most of my spirit communications in two ways now, and this is after a long time in. This isn't where it used to be at all. And the first is that I just know stuff, and this is very common. Mm-hmm. Like I will be like,
clairsentience.
I'll have a question, I'll throw it out in the world, and sometime later, it almost never happens immediately, I'll be walking down the street, and it'll be like, boom, oh, I have the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even really accessible to me until I start talking or I start writing. And so same thing, it's like, well, part of why I do so much interface with people on the Discord, and why I love podcasts and all that stuff, is because it brings stuff out that wouldn't come out otherwise. Which I think ties back into that relation thing, that it's human relationships. We're spirits. We're just currently embodied, land spirits, the spirits that were never incarnate or never had a physicality in the way that we consider it. All this stuff's available. And also everybody's going to have a different experience with it. Like, I think as much as I kind of fought it, like if I have a function here, it's to teach this stuff. And so a lot of what happens, if not most of it, happens because of that. And the more I've leaned into that, even though it's uncomfortable for me as kind of an identity, because I'm not into that whole scene really, as an identity, the more open it's gotten. And it's now to the point where the peeps are like, we'll hook you up with everything that you need if you just keep doing this. This is not everything I want, but everything I need. They're like, we'll cover the bases if you do this consistently. Yeah, Zindra, that's a great question. And the only thing that I can say is how I got to where I am now came about due to a breakdown that was really a complete nervous system fucking meltdown that happened a few years ago. I guess I started coming out of it about 3 years ago. It happened right after I published Changeling is when it reached its worst point. That's why I disappeared offline. I went heavy into somatic based stuff. I found some material from a woman named Suki Baxter on YouTube, and I've taken one of her courses, and she helped me with that quite a lot. And to me, that's kind of the base practice for anybody that's got that, is just to figure out how close to kind of a non blowing up state can you get to. And like, you don't have to get all the way there. You have to get little moments of traction. And that's what happened. And that's how I got out of that breakdown, was I was kind of guided to some things. If you go to my Patreon and just become a free member there, you don't have to join. One of the recent posts you'll see is a compendium of 6 what I call energy workings. And these are kind of somatic transinduction energy work, sometimes offering practices, and see how those work for you. Those, like I said, you don't have to join the paid part of the Patreon. You can just check them out. They're out there. They're all about a half hour long, and don't use them when you're driving because they are pretty trancy. And see what that does. And if it does, that may kind of give you some pointers as to things that will help. And they're all really similar too, because structurally I've kind of got a set of patterns that seems to work for a lot of people. And so you play with the different ones. Like, some of them are really spacey and some of them are a little clearer energy wise. But they do follow really similar patterns, and there may be some things in there that you can snag. And definitely check out Suki's work. It's Sukie, last name Baxter. There's in particular a thing on polyvagal ear massage that is one of the biggest kind of fucking life-changing things I ever found to get myself regulated.
Interesting.
All right. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I've never gotten into any of the somatic stuff. Like, I know very little about it. I have very little experience with it.
Yeah, it saved my life. I spent 2 years with a kind of body-based therapist where half of it was on the table.
That's so cool.
And it coupled that and then the other stuff that I found and kind of figured out and worked into other things that I knew how to do already. Those have been the biggest skill upgrades that I've ever had. Not all of unfortunately, it's one of those things like magic where you don't know what you get till you just kind of try it. Because there's a lot of people who are kind of just hopped on the keyword of that when it became a big keyword. But there's a lot of really good stuff in there, and if the stuff that I suggest doesn't work, there's a lot of ways into it. It's not a small field, really.
No, none of this is. That's the crazy thing too about the entire like field that is under the umbrella of metaphysics, is that it's so expansive. No one could ever. You cannot. It's like music. Like, no one can just master music in its entirety in one single lifetime. Be completely impossible. And the same is true with metaphysics. And Yeah, so we have to kind of each specialize where we feel drawn to or what feels correct to us, but to try and like get to everything be such an impossible task.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to ask you, it did have something to do with, I think, 6 ways.
Yeah.
When you talk about the field, what does that mean to you? And I guess like what, I guess if I remember correctly, I think there was like the point of kind of like becoming an interbeing or connecting with it. What does that mean?
Yeah. So as somebody who's not very theistic, like I view the deities as just kind of big spirits with cults. And my peeps agree. They gave me that language when I asked them recently, like, what's the deal with the deities? And they're like, they're just spirits with cults. I don't have the kind of what most people, when they talk about kind of like religious reverence to kind of like big god concepts, whether that's the goddess or whether that's, sky gods or whatever. I don't really have that inclination. And so I can't use that language to describe what I think is going on in the world, or how I perceive the world. And how I began thinking about animism when I first started was as a biological view. So you can probably find old things on me online somewhere talking about biological animism a bit. And the best conception I could see of kind of the big world is that the field is the organism that we all exist as components of this larger organism. And we're like cells within that body, right? Mm-hmm. And so the field is everything, is all of manifest and unmanifest reality. It's all possibility, right? Mm-hmm. And if we take that view and we take that we're in there, it means that we have the ability to tap into the unmanifest stuff as well as the manifest stuff, because part of that is what we are. There are aspects of us that are unmanifest. Even if we think about this in a purely biological sense, like gene expression, right? There's switches that can trip in us biologically that completely change who we are.
Yep.
We see this as far as brain chemistry, right? We can do a couple things to anybody's brain chemistry and they become a different person, right? That's unmanifest reality of who you are, right? It's still part of you. It's available. And so to me, especially when I was initially kind of talking about this animism early on, as I kind of came to that term maybe in 2012, that was how I began thinking about it. It was like, okay, give me a frame wherein I can start situating this, right? And so it also ties into kind of like ideas that are kind of popularized by Thich Nhat Hanh of interbeing, right? That everything in the universe is, right? Nothing is alone. And this is another core component of animism. Like I can't do something that doesn't affect everything else.
Right.
Most of that is not ever going to be noticeable. I'm not going to have much control over most of it, but there's no way for that not to be true in this totally interdependent system that we're parts of. And to me, I love that idea because it means that these things aren't outside of us, really. They aren't about us either, which both of those things are really freeing to me. If I go, okay, yeah, it's like I can't help but be agentic, even if I try to escape that. I have causal effects, even if I don't understand the mechanism of those chains. So I might as well get involved. Like a lot of people hit that and go super nihilistic, or they go like, how do I ever figure it out? Instead of go like, it's already happening. So I better see if I can get good at it.
Yep. Yep. I totally agree. I think that, when Okay, so the way I always describe it is it's like the idea of being a drop of water in the ocean, right? That there's a drop of water and then the ocean. They're the same thing, but they're separate. There's the individual drop, and then there's the entirety of it all. But you can't, if you remove the drop, you change the entire ocean, right? And you can't talk about the drop really without talking about the entire ocean. And I think that's the way the universe is. And even if there's a multiverse, that's the way the multiverse is, right? I don't know. It just seems like this core understanding that everything is connected to everything else is at the heart of pretty much every mystery tradition, right? And then from that mechanical point of view, I always look at that and say, okay, so like this is a kind of description of empathy, which I think is kind of the point of not everything, but like what makes us different, what makes us human is like this vast capacity for introspection and empathy that we have, and the understanding that everything affects everything else. And so, yeah, get involved. I think that's wonderful advice. It's like if everything you do affects something, why not do your very best to, have some agency in that if you can, like to the tiny amount that we can, right? At least try.
Yeah, certainly. And I also think one of the things ways that I talk about animism too, and like the book that I'm writing, that's in editing, is really about. It's a kind of I don't like the term because it's not really correct, but I don't know any way else to put it really. It's kind of an argument between or about how animism is the antidote to what I call empire. Right. And empire is a vast range of things. And I view empire as kind of a spirit pathology. I'm not talking about the state. I'm talking about the state. I'm talking about spousal abuse. I'm talking about sexual assault. I'm talking about emotional abuse. I'm talking about extractive capitalism. I'm talking about a random generation of borders, of weaponizing of wealth inequality. All of these things I umbrella under the term empire, right? And how I think that works is that empire is the impulse that happens to everybody to some degree in different places, I think, but it goes pathological for a chunk of the population that says, hey, I'm different enough from that thing is an object now.
Yep.
And animism says, no,
right.
Everything is being.
Yeah.
And you might have to discern between levels of beingness and what that means to you, but you don't get to say that thing's just object. And so it forces an ethical conversation continuously, right? And so with that, then we also look at, and this is just kind of based on vast historical human perspectives, as well as things that I picked up from different indigenous cultures. And I'm really careful not to reference most of the indigenous stuff because I think it's almost unrelated. Like we're too far away from that to fucking touch it. And so I try to like learn what I can from it, but then bring it into something that I can actually operate with, which my basis is magic, but it's influenced by those ideas as I understand them. And is like, so I've got dinosaur in me, right? I've got dinosaur in me because we breathe the same air. I've got dinosaur in me because we've been recycling fats and proteins for as long as there's been animal life on the earth. I've got dinosaur in me because some of those minerals impacted me. I got dinosaur in me because we've been burning fossil fuels for so long that I've got fucking probably dinosaur toxic overload going on, and so that is still present with me. The past is present in me. The past is present in all of us. All the other fucking species. I was talking to somebody about this the other day in these terms. I'm like, I was joking. I have a complete fixation about squirrels. I super love squirrels. And practically, I'm like, okay, that's really interesting because it's like some of my ancestors were functionally that, right? In this context, there's no way. Doesn't mean that I evolved from a squirrel, but how do we make a real decision when we all fucking theoretically, you know, were once, you know, single cell organisms that began dividing in the ocean that eventually turned into fish that fucking figured out how to walk, right? At some point, we're all the same thing. And when you accept that, to me, it just shuts down all sorts of activities. As far as things you don't get to think about. This is what I love about animism, and is you go, okay, if I make a distinction between the tree and the squirrel and that person, that's a distinction I'm making.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily sound. It's a thing I've done. It's a game that I've chosen to engage in.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just shifts things around a lot. And I think for me, it's been an incredibly helpful way to shift things around, because then I'm like, wait a second. So there's been a billions and billions, obviously, of just humans who are dead here. And those energies still are present.
Mm-hmm.
They're available. There are a fucking gazillion other spirits that are present. And they're available, and not in the sense that I need to go and find them and find their name in a book and then conjure them. I can begin a set of practices that begins to kind of open my house in a controlled way to them and going, hey, this is the house rules. Anybody that wants to play according to those house rules, we have treats here and we have projects, and let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That's very, very cool. I love everything you just said so much. The thing that you call empire, I call reptilian consciousness. It's like the animal part of you that is not that seeks to dominate rather than be one with, right, your environment, with everyone else, with everything else. And I think of it as just like you were saying, like as you were talking about, you've got dinosaur in you, like we all have parts of our brain that evolved millions of years ago in a situation where it's, you know, constant just survival and competition. And you know, my theory, one of my ideas, not even a theory, but like my belief about consciousness is that it is evolving towards greater levels of empathy and compassion and away from, you know, that need to dominate, right? But that's still in us. And the whole idea of the battle between good and evil, to me, is which direction do you want to go within your own mind? Do you move towards greater levels of empathy and compassion, or do you more towards levels of dominance and control? Both are there. Both are options that are available within your mind, right? Within your brain structure, within the way that you can move through the world. And, you know, where do you want to go?
Yeah, you know, it's like I know you'll get this, but just to be clear for anybody listening, like I totally get kind of the benefit of that perspective, and that it's the one that makes sense to you, but I come at it from a totally different viewpoint. And some of this is because I was very early on influenced by Pyotr Kropotkin's mutual aid, which is really a refutation of the ideas that everything was competitive in nature. Basically saying, like, this happens interspecies between certain species, but it doesn't really happen within most species. And that this was an error in judgment, right? And so that influence has always been really big on me. And so what I think, and what the allies and some of the peeps, so the allies to me are like are a very small group that tell me that they came into this existence with me, or this kind of manifestation with me, and they will exit with me. So you don't call in your allies, you don't find them, you don't get new ones in this specific sense. They're functionally a part of you. And frequently you'll hear me or see me talking about we, and this is because it's that, you know, it's like I still get caught in believing that I'm just a solo little person here, but I know that's really not real, you know. And what they say is that there's always been some folks that catch that drive to compete and to dominate, and that in deep history, when we were in much smaller groups, this was very recognized and dealt with.
Right.
And so it would be, you know, if we try and use kind of, we're going to just use kind of a generic imagining of a much earlier indigenous past for whoever this person is we're talking about. The folks whose job it was to keep track of that shit would be like, dude, Larry is off the fucking chain and is going to fucking fuck shit up so bad. We got to get Larry back. And they would basically go and send out a crew of people who would go, hey, Larry, you're coming with us. And if Larry didn't want to come with you, Larry didn't have a choice. Yeah. This is what some spirits I talk about basically told me this story a million times for about 2 years in different forms. And they would be brought in and there would be ceremonies done to kind of clear them of this kind of pathology. Yeah. Because they recognized it. It's like, you're going to fuck shit up. And it happens. People get really wound up in their heads and start to think, hey, I could own that person or I could take whatever I wanted. Right. But I don't believe this is normal. I believe that it's normal as an impulse, but I don't believe that culturally.
I completely agree. Yeah.
This was a historical truth at all. I don't think it's who we are. I think it's one way we can be.
Yeah, it's a mode of being that's available, but it's not the one that's natural. It's not what we should be moving towards. It's not beneficial to anyone, right? That the understanding that you are part of a network and a group is so, number one, so plainly obvious, right? Yeah. But this philosophy continues to manifest itself, and it's one of the things that, and I'm going to be recording a video about this later today. This is, and I'm careful. I want to be careful with these words. I'm not trying to insult, millions of people or anything like that. But the extreme manifestations of what is known as the left-hand path philosophy, right, which is of the self and individualism and me. Like, I'm not there. Look, hundreds of thousands of left-hand path practitioners are just out there trying to improve themselves. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But an extreme manifestation of that philosophy, which is like what you see with the O9A, for example, right, is this idea that you must become separate to individuate, to be to dominate the group, right? It's the law of the jungle, might makes right mentality, and I wonder where it comes from. And I look around and there are other species that can have a mentality like that, and that mentality within that species is good for the overall system of planet Earth, right? There have to be predators, but we don't have to be predators in that sense. We don't have to be predatory towards each other. And I think that one of the things that fucks humans up is that we have such a degree of intelligence and free will that we're just not going to do what's good for us. Oh, I'm going to do the other thing. And I've met people like this who are good people, but still have this kind of mentality of if you tell me what's good for me, I'm absolutely not going to do it.
Well, this is, functionally, I think this is because we've basically lost what would make one indigenous. The vast majority of us have, which is this kind of that your life experience is entirely built within endless kind of lore and law that are rooted to place, that are rooted to thousands of years in place, and learning what works in that space, what spirits are in that space, which ones you need to propitiate, which ones are allies. And as we kind of, and this is what the function of empire was, began to split us off from that connection. It does it everywhere. It drives wedges between us and reality is how I think about it. And as soon as that's happened, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah.
And so to me, this is all a process of what I do is kind of in part trying to do a little tiny drop in the bucket to kind of start to swing things in a different direction.
Yeah.
Because I think we're in, a mass, probably 100 or more generation process of digging out of this hole.
Absolutely.
At least that's the super conservative estimate, or happy estimate. I don't think that's probably real. And I think it's fascinating. It's like the deal is and this is again the spirits that I call the queens who are the ones who really kind of brought the constant pressure of the empire stuff into my world. It had always been things that I thought about, but they were the ones no, you're talking about it What they say is that in functional societies, what occurs is like a form of a radical intolerance. And this is that there's shit that's fine to do, even if it's kind of stupid and it doesn't serve you. But as soon as you begin doing damage to the land base, to the actual society, and begin to make that society non-functional, it has to stop.
Yeah.
And functionally, what I call empire in its more advanced forms is like, how do we get people to concede all of that ground everywhere so that they accept that, yeah, the fact that I'm going to fucking build 8 million data centers for no real reason, except I think it's fun and I think it'll make me some fucking money.
Nobody wants this. Like, that's the crazy thing.
And it's beyond the nobody wants it. We can see the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like, if we had a functional society,
nobody wants some things.
yeah, you know, and it's like, and if we had a functional society, that would be instantly shut down. Like those people,
yes.
You look at somebody like Elon Musk or Peter Thiel or these guys, they would have been totally stripped of all power in a functional society.
Right. Yep.
You should never even have gotten to where they are.
Never, ever should we allow this, but we glorify it to an extent where it's like, dude, like tech bros worship these motherfuckers. And they are just robbing the world, and they are don't get me started. So.
Yeah, I know, right?
No, but so it's interesting. And so the Queens the Queens were the ones who basically came in and said, yeah, like view all of this as a singular pathology scaled in different ways.
Yeah, you know? I agree. And I think that pathology is something that we can single out. And then just like you were saying, in a functional society, we would single it out and say, no, this is the wrong way. We know where this leads. We've seen it over and over again. It's not good for you. It's not good for anyone. And we got to shut down. To that extent, though, at the same time, we don't want to homogenize society. We don't want to tell people not to be individuals, but there's certain mentalities, philosophies, sets of actions that we can say, like, this is objectively bad for everyone. Don't do it.
And also, I think there's a difference between being an individual and what we conceive of as being an individual in the modern West.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. Like we all said kind of early on, I don't know if it was on when we were recording or not, like none of y'all know what I do in my house.
Right.
Like you can see some of my kitchen and one of my altars, but you have no idea if I'm like, smearing shit all over the walls of my bedroom. And frankly, unless you fucking are my upstairs neighbors, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like if you knew, maybe you don't want me bringing food to your potluck, right? But it's just not important. This is not what we're talking about, right?
No,
we're talking about something very different. The idea that as an individual, I think it's okay to, I don't know, fucking bulldoze 8 million acres of forest because I want the money out of the lumber.
Yeah.
That, knowing what we know about the reality of the ecosystem, is a hard no. Yeah. That's not you expressing your individuality. That's me saying, hey, that's you saying, hey, guess what? I'm going to come into your house and smear shit all over your fucking walls. Absolutely. And I'm going to do this to everybody. And I'm going to do it because I've generated a legal system that protects me. I'm immune from the consequences of my actions. Which is really, and this is another thing that came from the Queens, was I was asking them, like, how do we talk about the elites in a way that isn't the way that it's just all the conspiracy nonsense and all of the pure, like, it's all about money, right? And they said that what it is to be elite in our system is to be immune from the consequences for your actions, which, again, coming from what we were talking about before, isn't really a thing, but it is a thing on a human societal level if things are set up in certain ways,
Right. And that's we can never let the system. We already have. It's too late. But in an ideal functioning society, we would never allow for these protections to exist either. right? To build
Right.
layer after layer after layer after layer of protection and propaganda and, laws that further enable this group of people to keep doing what they're doing, right? So this is something that I hate to burst everyone's bubble about this. Again, something I'm recording a video about later today, but everything that has happened, that even the worst things that are described in the Epstein files have been going on for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Long before fucking Jeffrey Epstein. It's not Epstein is just a guy that they caught facilitating these things that have been happening nonstop since Sumeria at least.
And it also allows people to ignore the way more important reality that almost all of this abuse of this type happens within the home.
Yeah.
It's parents, uncles, brothers doing this in the home, like almost all of it. And so all of these attempts to, and I'm not fucking defending those guys at all. They should all fucking burn as far as I'm concerned. But
it's that pattern of consciousness that we have to.
But again, and realize that it's a distraction.
Yeah.
You have people who are on the internet fucking screaming about Epstein who are raping their daughters. This is a fact.
Yep.
Well, I was going to say they're hashtagging Save the Children, thinking they're defeating child sex trafficking with reposts when your neighbor's doing it to their kid.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is where the Queens
come on.
Yeah, and this is where the Queens come in and they say, no, radical intolerance, this shit that can't be allowed. And so I do think we're talking about a massive multi-generational project to shift things, but I think it just everybody's got to figure out their piece in the thing. And because of who I work with in this stuff, part of my piece is addressing this stuff. And not that I have the solution, but that we have to accept that there is a solution. But that solution isn't a quick fix. It's like there's an entire change in the way we do society, in the way we think about individuality, in the way we think about freedom, blah, 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 blah. And that's a huge fucking project, but I think it's important. And so, my little piece of it is I get to talk to magicians about things that hopefully will, begin to shift somebody's thinking that then gets handed down, that then gets handed down, that then gets handed down, because we got here incrementally. Nothing really happened fast. And we're going to have to kind of get back to something that works incrementally as well.
Yeah, I do think that we're making progress, and here's my evidence for that. And maybe there's some naivety here, but you couldn't pay me there's no amount of money that you could give me that would cause me to hit my child, right? I'm even in this, because I got this shit kicked out of me when I was a kid, and I won't do it. And the reason I got very angry at my mother when my son was born, because I suddenly realized, oh my God, I could never do the things that were done to me. And I think that is a millennial trait. I think that is something that you're just like, none of my friends hit their kids either. Right. But like our parents all kicked the shit out of us and their parents did it much worse to them. And so I do see there's sort of a line in the sand being drawn where we're an entire generation, obviously not the entire generation, but a large portion of a generation is saying, no, I'm not going to enact violence upon my child. And I do think that there's a lot of rhetoric out there about like things being hopeless, but I honestly think if we can raise one generation of humans to not have had so much violence visited upon them, that they will continue that trend and it will get better. And so, I see some positive motion there.
And I'm with you. I'm not at all hopeless. I don't think, like I said, I don't think we get any quick fix. I don't think there's anything like that. But I'm entirely hopeful. I think that, one of the things that I was going to say earlier is I think that the difference, what makes us special, because you were kind of talking about what kind of some of our cognitive stuff, is that combo of that cognitive stuff and the opposable thumb makes us wildly dangerous in a way that no other creature is.
Oh, yeah.
And so instead of that kind of dominionist kind of view of I am man, I get to take it all, what it should do is what I think it has to do is force like really comprehensive ethics.
Stewardship.
That moves into kinship, that moves into stewardship, and moves into this thing that we know is present because it's still present in many, many societies. We just have to begin working our way closer to that, understanding that you don't go back to what was. If Giant Comet wins the next election, like, the bumper stickers that I really approve of always say, maybe we get to go back there, like in November or whatever. But barring that, it's a very big project.
It is. It's a very big project, but I think that my belief is just that this is the natural progression of consciousness towards greater levels of empathy, but also that we have to consciously choose to perpetuate that also, right? And that's part of the mechanism of how evolution occurs, is that there's a very heavy psychic component to it, and the choices that we make and the views that we develop, like, for like the biggest conundrum for me is capitalism, right? Because there's so many negatives, but then there's also so much going on with socialism that doesn't work out, but like a lot of that is because of capitalism. And it's like we have to find the correct balance between the group and the individual, and that right there, that finding the balance between the group and the individual is such an important part of the human story. And I hope that we get it right in the end.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. Yeah, it's interesting shit.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to make sure I got into before we ended it, I did want to get into what is dirt sorcery to you?
Dirt sorcery is mostly it started as a joke, and so I found the Temple of Psychic Youth stuff and started that practice. And then when I was 20, so I'd kind of figured out some stuff. So I was doing magic, but I hadn't kind of really gotten full on into it. And when I was 20, I ended up joining the OTO, and shortly after, I actually ended up joining the Temple of Psychic Youth because I hadn't really connected with them. I just was using the materials. And my own practice was very much, it still is very much rooted in material based. So feathers, rocks, stones, statues, objects. My work is very object based. But I was living down the street, or up the street from Thelema Lodge of the OTO, and that I was a part of. And so I'd be at Thelema Lodge all the fucking time. I hung out there continuously, a ton of friends there. It was great. But periodically somebody would roll through that, like, just assumed that since I was there that I was really into kind of Western esotericism and heavily studied and all this stuff. And they would start talking a bunch of nonsense to me. And everybody that knew me in there was like, that's not his jam. It doesn't matter. And so they would go for a while, and I would finally have to cut them off because it's like, dude, it's not my jam, And so I started telling people, I'd say, like, excellent, astrology, Kabbalah, fucking tesseracts, whatever. I'm mostly a rocks and string kind of guy because it was really literal. I'm like finding rocks, I'm sigilizing the rocks, I'm tying shit to them, making these natural fetishes, and then working with these things is pretty much how I worked magic. And that eventually became what I started calling dirt sorcery, really as kind of a joke. But then as I kind of played with it, I began to really like the term because it's about everything that we're talking about here, that it's not trying to transcend this place. It's like, we're made from dirt, to dirt we will return. It's not impure, we're not impure. We don't need to become pure in some way. We don't need to transcend the physical. None of that shit's sound in my perspective. And so dirt sorcery is really is kind of magic focused on that reality of being right here. It's not trying to escape any of this stuff. it's really wedding yourself in and going, yeah, I get that I'm an animal. I get that I have, a big brain and opposable thumbs, but that don't really mean shit in the grander scheme, except that I need to be more careful than other animals do. And let's do this really well. And whatever happens next, happens next.
I love that.
Yeah, hell yeah. That was really good. Thank you.
It's a weird thing for me because I am ceremonial magic is deeply unappealing to me. Magical theory, the mechanics of magic, right? The how does it all work, the physics stuff, I adore that. I love it. But then in my practice, I like things that are real, that are, what you would call dirt sorcery, just using sympathetic resonance and feeling and emotion and what you have at hand and what is a part of your natural environment. Right?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I'm like on the other side. We were just talking about it in the group, because it's like I kind of and one of the ways that I put it was that, like, I don't consider myself an occultist at all. I'm not interested in theory beyond what is necessary to do work.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very little. And to me, it's all related.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have an idea of what might work, and that's where the theory side of it comes in, And one of the ways that I put that was that for me, there's some occultists are magicians, or my kind of preferred term at the moment is people who are like practicing operative spirituality,
Mm-hmm.
right? Spirituality that requires you to actually get in there and do shit, not the vague, let's think woo thoughts, but like, let's do woo things, there's a big difference. And most people who practice don't care about theory.
No.
Yeah.
And in the modern world, because again, if you love talking and you love theory, there's tons of people to talk about it with. And so it's what floods the thing. There's only so many different ways you can talk about sympathetic magic and contagion, and really basic kind of, like you can form relationship with spirits that are just around. I mean, I talk about it all the fucking time, but it's my job. And so it looks like kind of the vast swath of all this information is necessary to practice, and that's absolutely not true.
No.
Many of the best practitioners I know have read like 1 or 2 books on magic, and they're so fucking good because they spent the next 40 years honing what they experienced,
and strengthening the relationship
and feeding it back in. Like they didn't get lost in the sauce,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's good shit. Good advice, not to get lost in the sauce. It happens
available
all the time.
It's always there if you need a little.
No, it's so easy.
You don't have to wade into it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very easy to get lost in the sauce.
But I'm also like, and again, the neurology thing is super important. Like, I know a lot of people are really driven to study. I'm not. I never have been about anything. I'm a very bad student because you give me like 3 notes that sound good on the guitar and I'm done. I don't want you to show me the rest of the scale. I'm like, that's it. Excellent. I love those 3 notes. Let's go fuck around. And I'm fucking around with those 3 notes and what happens because I fuck up around them and some of it sounds good for the next 20 years. I'm still there. I know fucking nothing, but I play for, an hour or 2 a day.
So many great musicians though.
I'm not one of them.
I mean, like that mentality has created some of the greatest. Not that mentality, but just that approach, I guess. Right? Like, I mean, there's obviously Kurt Cobain is like the perfect example, right? Like, here's one chord shape, and then maybe he's got a couple acoustic chords that he threw in there also, but like that was it. The Beatles, You know, I mean, like a couple chords, that's it.
And so I think it's really interesting because it's like, so like when I say all this stuff, I also understand that what's going to work for a fuck ton of people is not what I'm suggesting.
Mhm.
And so, you know, what I generally like, I don't know if I remembered to do it on this course. That could explain a couple of things, but usually I suggest people like dive pretty deep into listening to me on podcasts and stuff before they buy a course, because I think I blow some people up because they're just like, can we talk about this? It's like, I can't, I don't know anything about that. And to them, it's like, oh, but this is like such a core component. And I'm like, yeah, for you,
For you, yeah.
you know, can we talk about K-pop now? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that happens a lot with me. I get a lot of people who want to talk to me about like I know absolutely nothing about the Kabbalistic tree of life, and everyone's like, what do you mean?
Yeah, I don't know shit about
like,
that.
I know that I recognize it if you show it to me, but like it's not a part of my practice at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Don't know jack shit about it, dude. I know the runes. I know, you know, I know the things that I'm interested in. But the tree of life to me is just like, this. I don't want to.
Oh no, I was like that for a long time. I
Yeah.
didn't want to get into it. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I was like that about astrology, and now I love astrology.
I had a hilarious chat with somebody about that a long time ago, and they were like, yeah, but it's just this filing cabinet. And I was like, but you assume that I know enough that I need a filing cabinet for it. This is totally wrong.
Yeah.
You mentioned before that I was going to ask earlier. You mentioned before something about the OTO. Are you still involved with the OTO? Or are you consider yourself a Thelemite still, or no?
No, I don't. I'm not sure I ever really considered myself a Thelemite because I have like a pretty hate hard on for Crowley. I don't like the guy. I never have.
Agreed. Yeah.
He's really not interesting to me. But it was a place, much like this is the groups that I joined were places where I could play. I didn't want to strictly go it alone. And so when I found a particular lodge of the OTO, which a friend of mine was the lodge master of, I immediately joined. I was like, yeah, let's go. Because it was people to play with. And at that time, I was, because of, you know, I got into the Crowley material and the Golden Dawn material simultaneously with Libernal and Psychonaut. So everything was filtered through my thinking about Libernal and Psychonaut. And so I really just viewed it as like, it was a place to play. And so I did that for 4 initiations. I think I ended after my 3rd.
Okay.
And then I was in the IoT briefly. In the same situation, like, okay, this is not quite what I do, but it's a place that'll let me do what I do, and let's see what it's like to work around people. And generally, I just came up with I'm better probably not actually in ritual work with people live. It doesn't work great for me.
It's definitely a good place to meet other people and get different ideas of what's out there.
Yeah, and it was really cool. There were some folks in there's a guy that lived downstairs of the actual temple itself in Thelema Lodge that had a killer library. And so I got to see original printings of the spare books before they were reprinted. That was the first time I got to see kind of really good spare art reproductions. So, and yeah, lots of folks that were down with chaos magic and down with experimentation. It was a very pro kind of chaos, pro experimentation, pro psychic youth temple at that time. Thelema Lodge was.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, I used to be a member of Tahui Lodge. Well,
oh, okay.
Yeah. Nice, man. Yeah, when you mentioned that earlier, I meant to ask you. And you know, the funny thing is that I don't think I could be wrong. It's been a while. I don't think you mentioned anything about Thelema in 6 ways, right?
No, it's unrelated to anything in
there. Yeah, but you were very popular amongst some people I knew in the OTO and other, witches.
Yeah, I was making a lot before I wrote Six Ways. I was mostly known as a jeweler, making talismanic jewelry. And because of my time in with the OTO, I also, one of the things that I pushed was some specifically kind of Babylon-based jewelry that was not the usual, that kind of came through in trance work, and related stuff. And so some of that came from there as well. Yeah, the thing that I got from Crowley was Libra O. That's there's a phrase in Libra O that is kind of the root of chaos magic to me, and that's the biggest influence from him. And that's where he says, basically, he says, in this book we're going to talk about, and I'm not quoting it directly, the spheres and different planes of being and all this stuff that may or may not exist, and it's immaterial whether they exist or not. When we do certain things, certain results follow.
Mm-hmm.
And this to me is the most important thing in magic, that if you could get somebody to get that, and realize that that's the most important statement in that entire book, it would change things in how people approach magic, because it short circuits that. It means you can figure out all the theory, but you can create the perfect ritual theoretically that doesn't do what you want it to do.
Right.
And people, I think, get stuck. So they're like, fucking, I'm going to do the headless rite until this result works. And it's like, it's not doing that for you. Do something else.
Yeah.
But they're like, but theoretically, this should do it. It's like, who gives a fuck?
That theory is like, which theory is the working theory? It will be radically different person to person, depending on all kinds of things that are not under the control. Some that are, some that aren't, some that they're completely unaware of, some that we don't even know about yet. And
it's interesting too, because it's like I never played with the headless rite or the Goetia really at all early on, and then I did around 2015, 2016, and it was so awesome, because what happened was it fucked up everything. Like the whole that little chunk of work created so much carnage in my life, and my stubborn refusal to stop is what made my allies actually start talking to me.
Wow.
That they were like, fucking stop. And I was like, oh, who are you? And they were like, you know who we are. We've always been here. This ain't right. Don't do it. We will guide you. And I was like, okay.
I thoroughly agree.
So like totally effective, utterly horrible. I don't recommend it to anybody, but
totally right. And it's so fucking trendy right now. And everyone, I have so many people who book like I'll do a free discovery call with anybody to, talk for 50 minutes, see if joining the school is a good idea for you. A lot of people assume that I work with the Goetia because I have lots of friends that do. And I'm like, I wouldn't fucking, every time I touch that book, because I have a copy of it, it's back here. If every time I even touch it, shit starts happening in my house that I don't want to happen. In fact, yesterday, so after this recording, I'm 100%, this is a true story, guys. After this recording, I've asked 3 of my students to come and be present while I try for the 25th or so time to record a video where I talk about this, because every time I do it on my own, my microphone and video cut out midway and I have to start over. So I have to ask them to come kind of shield the space so that I can get through the fucking lecture so I can post it. But even when I did this lecture live a few days ago, video cut out in the middle and everyone had to rejoin the meeting. And it's like the disturbances that start to happen every time I get anywhere near the Goetia are so infuriating to me. And it's like, okay, cool. You don't want me talking about you. I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. But this trend going on right now of everyone wants to work with demons. Everyone wants to work with the Goetia. I'm like, did you read the Goetia? Because it says in like the beginning, don't do this. It's a bad idea. and you just started learning magic and this is what you want to do like on day 2.
Well, I think it's also, one of the ideas that I play with a lot with people is this idea of we do a lot of stuff as proxies for things that we don't know what they are.
Yeah.
And one of the things that is a big one there is we chase intensity, or where we think we're going to find intensity. And it's like, what the fuck are you actually trying to achieve? And does the intensity of the experience when you kind of set things in motion, which is the ritual, right? Is that related to the thing you're trying to get? It usually isn't.
Right.
And this was one of the really big shocks for me, was that part of my neurodivergence is that I will do things for endless periods of time if I find them interesting. So like 7 years on working a single ritual has happened. Where I'm just like, this works, I will just slowly iterate. But the root never changes, That's very much my approach. And it was so funny to have the allies very much just be like, okay, you're not doing that with them. And I was doing stuff with folk saints. I was kind of in the whole, I came back from being away from kind of the wider magic world into like 2011, 2012. And so I started playing again, really. And so they were like, like pay off the Four Kings, stop with the headless rites. And then like next up, they were like, okay, pay off the folk saints, get them out of here. Like, just clear all this shit. We got you. And it was very obvious. Like, as soon as that shit was out of my space, everything began flowing. Is this everybody's experience? Obviously not. You got to pay attention to what's actually happening and if it's working for you. Because just because somebody says this is the way doesn't mean it is for you.
Well, and people will say it, but just from observation, I don't know a single person, and I know many people who kind of exclusively work with these energies, like the Goetia specifically, and they're not to be, I'm not trying to be a dick here, but like their lives are all falling apart.
Yeah, I've said that too before.
And so, best example is my buddy Matt. A couple of years ago, because when we were, I say a couple of years, it's probably at least a decade, but quite a while ago, when we were both still very much experimenting with a lot of stuff, I very foolishly recommended to him, well, why don't you try the Goetia, try some, see how this works. And then for the next 2 years, his life just went down the shitter. And then we were talking about it a couple of years later, and I'm like, do you still have that book? Is that the fucking problem? Is that the problem here? And he's like, and it just hit him like, oh my God, that's the problem. And he got rid of it and things started to get better.
It's really interesting because it's like, and again, I believe that it kind of goes to that proxy thing. It's like, I think a lot of folks should be asking more questions rather than reading more, and really to themselves. Like, why is this thing interesting to you?
Yep.
Like, why? What do you see here specifically that addresses the needs in your life? And this is true when somebody says, like, well, what spirit should I work with for blah, 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 blah. It's like, what are you actually trying to achieve? And have you really gone down that road? And is that thing like a stopgap? Because if it is, you should, sometimes you got to deal with it, but often you can skip it, right? You go, okay, I think I have to take this step before I take this step. It's like, but keep that further step in mind at least and go, this is where I'm going. And this is kind of what I love about working with the spirits in the way that I do, is most of it has become conversational. And it's mostly one way. I don't get a ton of feedback. I'm not super sensitive. But it is that I will go to the altar, and there's 3 others in the house that are all kept daily. And I'll bring everybody tea in the morning and clean up the flowers if that needs to happen, or bring whatever offerings I'm going to bring them, and say, hey, and then let them know what's working really well in my world, and let them know what things I would like some assistance on. If I would like something to smooth out, if I would like some guidance to appear, because I don't care if it's them telling me or if I find the right book, right, to help me through something. And it's all just conversational, which means that that kind of ritual no longer becomes about like, let's generate a lot of power and the correct statement of intent. It becomes this really epic conversation. And this has worked for me really beautifully in a way nothing else has. And I don't know that it's going to work for everybody. This is not me suggesting that, but for folks that are maybe kind of found that they've been spinning their wheels other ways, this is a different way of working. And it's viable for a lot of people. It's a fascinating thing. And so that goes back to that whole thing. It's the relationship thing within animism. It's like, no, it's like years in with the same people and generally kind of similar processes, you end up with a very different reality.
Sure. Something I kind of wanted to bring up that I thought might be I guess a thought or a possibility on maybe like what Sonri was saying that I've said before with people working in the Goetia, they just end up having a shit life. I have wondered, just like, and this almost kind of goes back to what you said with Crowley, where, you know, who's to say this ritual is doing anything? But in my opinion, for most people that I know, when they were using the Goetia, they were probably using it to do something to somebody or something not the best. You know, they might have been using it for a negative reason. Now, to do a ritual, you're going to probably, depending on how you are, you might spend a lot of time. You might even have made things, constructed things, thought about how you're going to do it, or maybe you just do it a lot faster and you're not that in depth as another person. But my opinion, you're going to rehash in your head over and over again what you're going to do, and you're going to harp on that feeling and that idea over and over and over again. If you're doing a spell towards somebody, you might have killed the motherfucker 100 times in your head before you even did the spell. You know what I'm saying? So if you keep doing that throughout your whole life, is that going to affect you regardless?
Well, I think this is a really big thing, and even if we bring it down to more subtle stuff. So one of the things that, how do I put this? To me, the most kind of important magic that one can do, and that then spills out into everything else, so it has all of the real world effects people are looking for, is the stuff that's pointed at yourself. And it's like, okay, how do I get the most right? You know, in right relationship with my friends, with my family, if that's possible. Cut off the people that you got to cut off. Cut out the people that drag you down if you got to do that. Yep. Begin to like really work on kind of your energetic and kind of magical psychic hygiene. Get things really focused on just real wellness, however you would define that. And I'm not talking about healing chronic disease or any of that stuff. There's people that have some luck with that, but there's not a big track record there for magical stuff. But really, can you work consistently towards the things that you want and fucking just ditch everything else? Like I tell people, like, and I'm pretty unequivocal about this, like, I don't do much baneful work ever. Like throughout my life, very little has been done. Mm-hmm. Absolutely fucking none of it would happen in this house. Like if I was going to do something to someone, I wouldn't do the research on it in this house. I wouldn't bring the materials into this house. I wouldn't do any of that shit. I would go out to a fucking cafe I do not hang out in, do whatever I need to get prepped, collect all that shit, head out into the woods, do it, dump everything left over.
Yeah, right.
And then fucking maybe go to the gym and take a shower before I go home. Like, because I don't want that. Yeah. None of that is what I want. I don't want the competition. I don't want any of it lined up. I want my house, and by that I mean both the spiritual and the physical house, to all be pointed towards the things that I actually want to see. Every bit of it. Now, sometimes you're really fucked. Sometimes your situation is really fucked. And the best thing that you can do is maybe see if you can take the person out that's causing that for real, that you cannot just walk away from. Right. you know, but it's people are kind of in that whole thing of like, if you don't hex, you can't heal. It's like, fucking see if you can heal first.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's also
you
not
heal
if you
first, go to hex.
perform hexes. I think it's if you don't understand how it works. It doesn't mean you have to fucking do it.
It's really, yeah. I mean, I've had friends that were in really bad, usually specifically domestic violence situations,
Yeah.
that have asked if I would kind of generate some tools for them to use there. And
You just give them a bat.
pretty much that's the correct one, but you know, it's not always right. You know, and I remember doing this for a friend of mine, and I sent her the PDF and with the instructions that I'd kind of generated, and she wrote me back and she's like, "There's a reason nobody fucks with you." And I loved that because she's like, "This is the most fucking medieval shit." Like, it's really not. Like, I asked you, are you okay if they die? You know, because I don't think we have much control.
Oh my god, I agree. So thank you.
That's another thing too, yeah.
Absolutely. I don't
Like,
I think it's possible to cast like a light hex, but you don't know.
you don't fucking know, man.
Yeah.
You like send somebody like, I want to give the person like a skin condition, and they get that through something that puts them into anaphylactic shock.
I was just gonna say, yeah, you could give somebody
Like-
something where they could react a totally different way. They take a prescription that fucks them up.
You know, and so it's like, and it's, to me, it's just like, why is that the focus? Why? And again, that's what we're going to. What's the proxy? Or is the proxy that you feel powerless? Then work on stuff that actually builds your personal power.
Yeah.
That isn't personal power. That's just the ability to, like, it's like the epidemic in this country of people conflating the ability to pick up a gun and shoot someone with personal power. That's not personal power. That's just your ability to use a fucking tool. Okay, you can drive a nail. Great. You're no different.
Well, there's an interesting phenomenon in that many of the things that make a person feel powerful are actually the opposite of what makes them powerful, right? Cocaine will make you feel powerful. Cocaine's bad for you. Meth will make you feel powerful. Shooting guns, being violent, all of these things activate those parts of your brain that make you feel powerful, but really they're all rooted in, I would say, fear, right? Fear of not being powerful.
Yeah. And I think it's also, it goes back to the whole, again, thing we were talking about before. Our power lies in each other.
Mm-hmm.
Our power lies in networked groups of people that know each other really well, that will both step up for you and say, hey, I'll help you out with that. And also say, hey, you're just fucking really fucking heartbroken and you feel really rejected. And let's talk about that shit, because that's not worth you actually getting further riled up to try and throw something at. You know, you take out the trash, you don't fucking take it into the bedroom and like sort it on the bed for weeks on end, which is a lot of what I think this stuff ends up doing.
Sonri, was there anything else you wanted to ask or anything? Probably wrap it up. It's
No, not in particular. I always really enjoy talking to you, Aiden. I think you've got great ideas and a great way of articulating yourself. And you know, one of the things just a statement of appreciation is that I love that you're not here saying this is the way it is. This is what's correct. Everyone else is wrong. I'm right. Which is something you see all over the occult world. So really appreciate that. And yeah, I think I'm good. I got lots to think on.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Thank you. I'm really glad you made it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Aiden, that was a really amazing discussion. I'm so happy you came on. Like I said before, it was an awesome experience for me because I read your book and it did influence me to get more hands-on with stuff. I did start kind of making like my own candles and talismans. I started getting more into that. And I guess a lot more of like what we would consider a ceremonial magician would consider low magic. They start to yeah, but you know, I got more and I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with that stuff. I'll always remember that. So thank you for coming on because again,
thank you for having me. Yeah.
remember even your name and your book when that book came out. You're a big hit among the people I knew.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah, no, it's such a surprise. Total surprise. It was not expected. I've said it many times. I bet I could sell like 300 books. And it's been more than that. So
yeah, I was gonna say I would assume it has been more than that.
The next one might only be that. It's probably the one that'll fall. Who knows?
Oh, well, who's do you have a publisher for that yet?
Oh, it's always me.
Oh, okay. All right.
The last ones, when I was having my breakdown, I formed, there's basically a co-conspirator for the first 3. And so those are kind of locked in place. We set that up when I was kind of losing my mind just to keep me out of doing stupid things. But the next one will be under my own imprint again. Yeah, no, I do the whole thing. I have an editor and I do all the layouts and all that shit. So
well, please, when it's out, let me know if you want to come on and promote it.
Absolutely, I would love to come in and talk about that one. It's an interesting book, or at least I think it's an interesting book.
I'm sure it's gonna be. I mean, and I think again that's one of the great things about all of your work is that it's interesting. You're not regurgitating other people's ideas. You've got interesting ideas that are really exciting to read about.
Thank you, man. That's good to hear.
There's some humor, which I think keeps it exciting.
I think that's, it's one of the things that I kind of, when I was writing 6 Ways, I began writing some of those absurd footnotes, and because they kept me light with it. Yeah. And the more I did it, the more I was like, oh, I've never seen this anywhere, and I really like it. I think it's really good. And it was really funny. A friend of mine read, I think maybe it's the beginning of the process of weeding out that chapter, and like the first 3 sentences quote like I think 3 or 4 different songs from the 80s to make my point. Like it's almost, there's just me connecting things, and they were like, this is wrong, and I'm like, but did you laugh? And they were like, I did. It was like, so I did exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I remember when I think I was reading your book, I was also reading one on Lon Milo's. So like between both of these, it was pretty, like, it was a nice experience to be reading like 2 funny people's books back to back.
I think it helps people drop a lot of the stuff we've talked about, where there's a belief you have to be deadly serious that a lot of people hold. And that's another big block. It's like, yeah, you should take what you do seriously, but that doesn't mean you can't have fun with it. I talk shit to my spirits. Like there's 2 ways we talk. And one is when I'm doing the offerings and when I'm making requests, it's actually kind of formal, but it's not super formal. It's not as formal as what's in the books anymore because we've got those relationships built. But I frequently am wandering around talking shit with them. Bitches and motherfuckers are kind of my go-to things that come up that people are shocked by when they like kind of realize this isn't a joke. Because I will be like, motherfuckers, what is up with this? Why did that go that way? And then on the other side, it's like, then we get real with how important that relationship is. But it does also keep me in mind that this is a reciprocal friendship relationship. And I get humor off of them. They can be very funny. There's shit that comes from my peeps that is fucking hysterical. And some of that makes it into the books and other places. Because again, the things that are attracted to me, the way that I work, are things that like me as I am. And this is, again, I think another key for longevity. Is like, do you want to hang out with that spirit? If not, why are you talking to them? And then also, like, spirits pop in on people and people think they got to deal with them. And I always say that's like going to the bar and assume that because some guy walks up and starts talking to you, you need to go home with them. It's like, no, it's not real. Let that shit go. If it doesn't, if you don't have the hell yeah, I want to go bang this thing, don't bother,
That's well put. Totally agree. Thank you. Before we wrap it up, sorry, was there anything you want to promote about your show or anything?
No, not really. I mean, just, you know, we have a really fun school and a really fun community over here. And like I said, everything on my website is half off today. The coupon codes, I'll say it more clearly this time, are 333 for everything except coaching packages. Then it's 444. And I'm probably going to run this sale all week. My book will be out October 2nd. You can pre-order it on Amazon now. And I did just launch a certification course that goes along with the book. So if you'd like to learn the system of magic that I've developed, which I think is a lot of fun and very effective, then come do that. Come hang out. We do a lot of community events. We do a lot of fun stuff, and I'd love to have people come and join us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Great. So thank you very much for making it. And Aiden, please remind anybody too where they could find any of your stuff.
You can find me mostly on Patreon. The only social media I'm regularly paying attention to is Blue Sky, but I'm not really active on social media unless I have something to promote or cross-promote. The Patreon is pretty much it. And then also the first episode of my podcast dropped about a month ago, maybe. So if you do a search on Apple Podcasts for Glimmering, you'll get episode 1 of that, and it's GLYMMERING.
I'm gonna check that out.
And I will try and get the next one of those out in the next couple weeks. So,
what's your podcast gonna be about? What's the magic?
Whatever makes sense to me. It's I want it to be about magic, but often kind of tangentially. I'm interested in talking to people about their experiences more than as a promo thing. I'm also have some, I've had a few musicians that I know are practitioners in some way, who I want to get on to talk about kind of the intersection of their kind of spiritual practice and their music. And more of that if I can. And then those will be the shows that have guests. And then kind of the solo shows are more just kind of talking about my thoughts about all of this stuff in a way to, I've been producing endless kind of videos on Patreon. And at this point, I think I will shift a lot of those onto the podcast platform.
Cool.
So
nice, man. Good luck with all that. I hope that works out for you. I want to hear it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Right. Yeah. It sounds good. Thank you very much again for coming on. Like I said, it was wild for me to have you on, so I really appreciate it.
I'm totally stoked that we got to talk. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Sanray, again, thank you for jumping on and all your wonderful questions. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. I appreciate you. Appreciate being here.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it was super nice to talk to you again, Sanray.
Yeah. We gotta do this more often. There's I don't know how to put this. I'm not trying to be a jerk to anyone, but like there's a certain type of mindset of practitioner that I love talking to, and then there's everyone else that you talk to. I don't know, but Aiden, you're definitely in that group of people who I'm really fascinated to hear what you have to say about just about anything.
Yeah, and I totally enjoy your approach on things too. It's super interesting.
Very cool. Thank you very much. Oh my God, it's time to eat, huh?
Yeah, I'm hungry myself. And everybody in the chat, I appreciate the questions. I appreciate Frada RC. Thank you for the $5. I appreciate that. And the other people in there asking questions or whatever, making comments. I appreciate it. And that's why we go live. And until the next one,
yeah.
everybody be well.